My name is Aaron, and 2 years ago, my wife and I bought our first house in a small Ohio town. It wasn't much, just a single-story place with peeling paint and a basement that smelled faintly of mildew. But it was ours, and after years of renting, the idea of owning a place where we could start our family felt like a dream. The first week was uneventful. We unpacked, painted, and argued about furniture placement. It felt normal, domestic. Then the noises started. At first, I brushed it off. The house was old. Old houses creak, pipes shift, wood settles. But these sounds weren't just creaks. They were deliberate. A slow dragging sound beneath the floorboards at night. Sometimes a faint knock, rhythmic, almost like footsteps. My wife, Sarah, asked if we had raccoons in the crawl space. I promised I'd check. The crawl space hatch was in the basement, just a square of plywood with a rusted latch. I opened it one Saturday morning, flashlight in hand. The air that rushed out was stale, heavy, almost sour. I crawled in a few feet, shining the light around. Nothing, just dirt, cobwebs, and the low ceiling pressing down on me. Relieved, I told Sarah it was just the house settling. But the noises didn't stop. They got worse. One night, around 3 a.m., I woke to the sound of the refrigerator door closing. I figured Sarah couldn't sleep and had gone for a midnight snack. When I rolled over, she was right next to me, fast asleep. My stomach dropped. I grabbed the baseball bat I kept under the bed and crept into the kitchen. Nothing. But the carton of milk was on the counter, sweating in the dim light. We hadn't left it there. Sarah was convinced someone was breaking in. We started locking every window, every door. I even installed new deadbolts. Still, food kept disappearing. A half-eaten sandwich left on the counter, empty water bottles we didn't recognize, and always, always at night the dragging sound from beneath the floor. Sarah begged me to call the police. I did, twice. Both times officers searched the house, the basement, even the crawl space. They found nothing. One of them suggested maybe we had a homeless person slipping in and out when we weren't home. Keep things locked, he said. Should solve the problem. It didn't. A week later, I installed a cheap security camera in the living room, pointed toward the kitchen. I figured if someone was sneaking in, we'd catch them. The next morning, I opened the footage. For hours, nothing. Just a still, quiet living room. Then, around 3:17 a.m., something happened. From the corner of the frame, the plywood hatch in the basement floor slid open. A figure emerged. Not an animal, not some shadow trick. A man. Thin, filthy, hair matted into ropes. He crawled out slowly like he was used to it. He stood there in our living room, swaying, staring down the hallway towards our bedroom. For nearly a full minute, he didn't move. Then, he walked silently to the kitchen, opened the fridge, drank milk straight from the carton, and disappeared back into the crawl space, pulling the hatch closed behind him. My hands shook as I showed Sarah the footage. She started crying. I called the police again, this time demanding they come immediately. 2 cruisers pulled up, lights flashing. They swept the house top to bottom. When they opened the crawl space hatch, the stench was overwhelming. Inside, tucked in the far corner, was a nest, an old mattress stained with God knows what, piles of food wrappers, empty water bottles, and journals. Dozens of loose papers covered in cramped handwriting. Most of it was nonsense, strings of words, names, dates, but some of it was about us. He had written Sarah's name over and over. He wrote what she wore each day, what we ate for dinner, when I left for work. There were sketches, too, of our living room, our bedroom, even of us sleeping. My throat dried when I saw one page in particular. It was a sketch of me in bed, eyes closed, and next to it, written in capital letters, "I stood over him for hours." The police took the papers as evidence. They never caught the man. They said he must have slipped out when they heard them coming. For months after, Sarah couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house made her jump. We sold the place within a year, taking a loss just to get away. But sometimes, though, I still wake up at night and imagine the sound of plywood scraping open. I picture the man crawling out of the dark, standing over us as we sleep, and I wonder, how many nights did he stand there, watching, before we ever noticed anything was wrong? My name is Linda, and I lived most of my life in a small coastal town in Florida. In the late 90s, after my husband passed, I moved into a little one-story house near the bay. It wasn't fancy, but it had a porch, a garden, and those screen doors every house here seems to have, thin frames with mesh to keep out the mosquitoes. I thought it would be peaceful. It wasn't. The first time I heard it, I thought it was just the wind, a soft creak in the middle of the night, like the screen door easing open. I checked the next morning, but the latch was still hooked. A few nights later, it happened again. Creak. I sat up in bed listening. Then it clicked shut. I lay there frozen, staring at the dark doorway, convinced someone had been inside. But when I turned on the lights, the house was empty. At church that Sunday, I mentioned it to a neighbor. She frowned and said she'd seen a man near my house late at night. Tall, she whispered, wearing a long coat, but his face couldn't see it, just shadows. That night, I locked every window, double-checked the doors, and sat in my recliner with the TV on low. Around 2 a.m., I heard it again. Creak! The screen door opened slow and steady, as if someone were deliberately testing the hinges. My skin prickled. The latch rattled, but didn't open. Then, silence. When I finally built up the courage to peek, there was nothing there, just the empty porch swaying in the night air. I bought one of those motion sensor doorbells. My son came over and helped me install it. The very first night it went off. The chime jolted me awake, and when I checked the tiny black and white screen, I nearly dropped it. There was a figure standing directly at the screen door, inches from the mesh. Tall, broad-shouldered, a long coat that seemed to shimmer in the poor light. His head was tilted forward, as if peering straight into the house. I blinked, and the image cut to static. When it came back, the porch was empty. The police came, but they found nothing. No footprints, no signs of forced entry. One of them suggested it was just some drifter, but when I told him about the doorbell footage, he went quiet. Save the tape. If it happens again, call us. It did happen again, and again. Some nights the door would creak, the latch would rattle. Other nights the sensor chimed, but the footage only showed distortion, like the figure was too close, pressing against the lens. I bought a dog, a sweet mutt named Daisy. I felt safer with her around. For a while, things seemed better. Then, one morning, I woke to silence. Too much silence. Daisy's water bowl was untouched, and she wasn't by my bed. I found her on the porch, lying by the screen door. Her body looked wrong, shriveled like all the moisture had been drained out, her eyes wide, her tongue blackened. I screamed until the neighbors came running. I called my son. He wanted me to move in with him immediately, but I was stubborn. It's my house. I won't be chased out. That night, though, I realized it was too late. The door creaked open louder than ever, the latch snapping free. I picked up the phone and dialed 911, whispering to the dispatcher that someone was in my house. The operator kept telling me to stay calm. Officers were on their way. But as I stood in the hallway, I heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, crossing my living room. The sound of something heavy brushing against the walls. My heart hammered as the line crackled. Then, the footsteps stopped right outside my bedroom. I pressed the receiver to my ear, trying not to breathe. And then, as clear as day, I heard my own voice on the other end of the line. My voice whispering, "He's inside. He's already inside." The police arrived to find the house empty, the screen door hanging open. I was gone. The house sat vacant for years. Some say if you walk by on a humid night, you can hear the creak of the door, opening and closing. And if you stand long enough, you'll feel it. Someone on the other side of the mesh, leaning close, waiting for you to let them in. The Johnson family. Mark, his wife Emily, and their 7-year-old daughter Claire decided to rent out their spare bedroom to help with the mortgage. They put an ad in the local paper. Room for rent. Quiet home, good neighborhood, walking distance to bus. A young man named Tyler responded. He was 20, a student, polite and clean cut. He moved in with a single duffel bag. For the first week, things went smoothly. He paid on time, was friendly but kept to himself. The Johnsons were relieved. Then the odd things began. Emily started noticing items out of place. Her hairbrush was missing one morning, then reappeared in the kitchen drawer. A coffee mug vanished, only to show up on the bathroom counter. At first she blamed herself, but then Claire told her mother about the man in the hallway. Emily assumed she meant Tyler, but Claire shook her head. Not him, another man. He stands at the end of the hall at night. When Emily mentioned it to Mark, he laughed it off. Kids have vivid imaginations. But one evening, their next-door neighbor casually asked, "Who's the other guy staying with you?" When pressed, the neighbor insisted he'd seen 2 young men enter the house several times. Emily's stomach knotted. She told Mark, who finally agreed to pay closer attention. That week, strange noises echoed through the house at night. Not just footsteps, but muffled voices. Mark assumed Tyler had friends over, but when he confronted him, Tyler swore he hadn't invited anyone. "I barely even leave my room," he said. Things escalated quickly. One night, Emily woke to the sound of heavy breathing in their bedroom doorway. She sat up, heart hammering, but saw nothing. Claire began waking up screaming, insisting that the man had been standing in her room. The Johnsons called the police. Officers came, searched the house, checked every door and window. Nothing. They told the family it was likely stress or paranoia. But when Emily checked the baby monitor she'd set up in Claire's room, her blood ran cold. The grainy footage showed a figure, tall, thin, standing in the corner of the room at 3:14 a.m., watching Claire sleep. The figure didn't move for nearly 10 minutes before vanishing from frame. Police returned, this time more thorough. They inspected the basement, the attic, the closets. Then one officer tapped along the back wall of the upstairs hallway. The sound was hollow. They pried away a section of drywall and discovered a narrow passage, only a few feet wide, leading deep between the walls, up toward the attic. Inside, they found a makeshift den, a filthy mattress, food wrappers, empty water bottles, and photographs. Dozens of Polaroids pinned to the studs. The Johnson family in their living room. Emily folding laundry. Mark shaving in the bathroom. Claire playing in her room. All taken from hidden vantage points inside the house. The most recent photo was the worst. It showed the three of them asleep in the same bed, clearly taken from the corner of the room. On the bottom, written in marker, was a single word: soon. The police never caught the intruder. Tyler was cleared. He had nothing to do with it. The working theory was that someone had been living inside the walls for months, maybe longer, slipping out only when it was safe. The Johnsons moved out within the week, abandoning most of their belongings. The house sat vacant for years. Realtors struggled to sell it. Prospective buyers complained of strange noises at night, and some swore they found Polaroids tucked behind the vents. To this day, the house still hasn't sold, and every once in a while, a neighbor swears they see movement in the windows, a shadow pacing slowly, waiting for the next family to move in.